Australians have been learning to live with the phrase learning to live with COVID-19. So too businesses in New South Wales, which expect to be the first to reopen when 70% of the state is fully vaccinated.
I've lost track of how many weeks it's been actually. Look, it's been so hard and I just cannot wait till we are able to reopen and see our staff and our clients again. You know, these routes don't lie, so...
Even for a hairdresser?
Even for a hairdresser.
Owner of Sydney hair chain Royals, Mary Alameen, is expecting a rush when appointments recommence.
We have probably over 500 people that we need to call just from the waiting list.
Around half of her 50 staff have had at least one jab, well below the New South Wales average of 75%. She doesn't have plans to impose a vaccine mandate for clients or staff.
We have talked about the vaccine with our staff. Me personally, I've had my first jab already, so there's no right or wrong. We're definitely not going to enforce the vaccine on our staff or clients. Our main priority is the health and safety of our team and clients, of course. And so if it's not a mandate, then we're definitely not going to discriminate, and we're going to leave it up to them to decide whether they want the vaccine or not.
But signs from states like New South Wales and Victoria are to the contrary.
The privileges will extend to people at 70% double dose are only for those who are double vaccinated.
It's justifiable to have different freedoms for people that are vaccinated and unvaccinated. I have no problem with that, providing that every Australian has had every opportunity to get a vaccine.
If we get to that 70 to 80% mark, then lockdowns will be lifted, and we should be able to operate with vaccinated and unvaccinated people. What we don't want to be doing is being in a position where we're having to become compliance officers and actually have to pull people up at the front door from actually entering a supermarket, for argument's sake.
It's the same issue regardless of whether it's a small supermarket or a multi-million-dollar airline, raising concerns over a two-tier society between those who have been vaccinated and those who have not.
We're very optimistic about December and January. We think Christmas is going to be a fantastic time in Australia. I'd hope that November we start to see lots of state borders opening up.
Virgin CEO Jane Herdlicker says the airline is grappling with how to deal with vaccine status for their guests.
I've had guests reach out to me to say, how about we go back to the same sort of world that existed before, where there's a smoking and non-smoking section, only now it's a vaccinated section and a non-vaccinated section. So lots of different ways that this could play out.
The airline has mandated vaccination for some 6,000 staff, a move still under consultation with the unions.
The vast majority of our people are very, very positive that we've taken this step because they want to know that they're safe coming to work. And there are a handful of people who are quite frustrated, and we'll work through with them their issues.
However, she's against so-called vaccine passports for domestic travel.
Vaccine certification is necessary to do some of those things around the world. That may be necessary for us too. And there are lots of terms being used for that. But for me, there are lots of different ways to cross state borders, and the notion of a passport to cross state borders, feels quite tough.
The freedoms allowed when we reach that national 70% vaccination rate won't return uniformly nor permanently. In fact, even the Doherty Institute modelling suggests that at that 70% rate, we'll still enjoy 20% of our time in lockdown. Which all means that QR codes and masks are very much here to stay amid the need for key parts of the economy and society to reopen after a long COVID winter. Some overseas countries have faced hard lessons after abandoning all restrictions. Israel's rapid Pfizer rollout allowed for a sudden easing of restrictions in June, but they now have thousands of cases per day. So too the UK on alert as schools head back this week with more than 7,000 hospitalisations and over 100 deaths per day. The woman who helped inform Australia's plan to reopen says we should look to examples like Singapore.
Singapore, for example, who have got a slow exit strategy. They've got very high vaccination rates. They've acknowledged that public health measures have to persist. They haven't closed much in the way of business, but they have had very good test, trace, isolate systems and very good compliance with masks. They're a good example, I think.
With $5 million worth of wedding events down the drain, reopening can't come soon enough for Mary Ann Lowe from Melbourne's Bramley estate.
Working in the wedding industry and owning venues was always a dream of mine. For a long time I leased venues and I worked across multiple sites. I gave up my life to create what I created. Sorry. And, sorry, can I say I'm sorry?
Although many of her 280 couples with upcoming bookings will ensure their own guests are fully vaccinated, she welcomes a Victorian government pilot of a vaccine economy, whereby more events can be held if participants are double dosed.
You could do an honesty system, but, you can't even guarantee people will check in unless they're getting checked. So that's pretty much a redundant thought. The backlash from the public, if you come out and you say, oh, I'm not going to allow anyone who's unvaccinated in my venue. But as a risk to my business, my family, my financial future, that's the position that I'm sitting with right now.
A backlash some have already experienced.
I have been absolutely barraged by hundreds of anti-vaxxers, and I've had multiple death threats. I've had so many calls to my phone, email, private messages.
The Chapel Street shopping precinct floated a traffic light system to indicate the vaccination status of their shoppers.
When people come into the business and sign in, it goes green, red or orange, depending on where you are in the vaccination scale. And if it's green, that means you can come in, have your hair done, have a drink with your girlfriend.
Well, we wouldn't support mandating vaccinations without being legally indemnified. And I guess for that particular example, they would want to be doing that with great caution because, what we don't want to see is actually retailers becoming divisive between consumers that are vaccinated and those that aren't. So we wouldn't support that position without there being a public health order.
New South Wales and Victoria have both indicated plans for vaccination to be required in some settings, a mandate that would make all venue operators more relaxed about reopening in the coming months.
If our government doesn't give our businesses hope, I want to make sure I stand up and I give them that. And whether that means that I need a security guard to walk around with me every day, I don't care.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.